Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Basement Files. I'm Ginger, and today's episode is taking a different angle than what I have done in the first few episodes. But before I get into it, I just want to throw out that today's affiliate is Thrive Market. You can get 30% off plus a $60 gift. So check out the link in the episode's details and see what you can, get that you may like. It's all kinds of organic stuff. But anyway. So this episode was a last minute decision. I was going to do something else, but I caught the show on Netflix called Apple Cider Vinegar. And this is about a girl that faked cancer, and she made a lot of money off of it. She was an influencer, really deceived a lot of people. But this is a topic that's also very important to me. So we're going to get very personal in this episode. It's kind of important to me that I do share this information because, again, it's very relevant to the episode that I'm doing and how this particular thing, it enraged me before, it enrages me more now. And that's because at the end of 2018, I was diagnosed with stage 2B breast cancer. And my husband and I, we'd been married for 16 years by that point. Our kids were 5, 7, and 9. And luckily, I found out that it was a slow-growing cancer, a purely mucinous carcinoma, which is extremely rare and extremely rare in my age group. In fact, there are so few cases, I've only met a couple people like me with this type. But I found out that it was so slow that it had been there 5 to 10 years. And remember, I just said that my kids were 5, 7, and 9, which means I may have had it when all 3 of my children were born, at least when my son was born. So this was an extremely unsettling thing because after you have a baby, you end up getting a breast exam, and of course it wasn't found. Well, I found out why. First of all, if it started when my oldest was born in 2009, then it would not have been palpable at all. Purely mucinous carcinomas are also very soft, so it wasn't found until it was ready to be found. And that's because I had an itch, I scratched it, and I caught it the right way. And if I went at it at a different angle, then I didn't feel it. But if I went at it at the right angle, I could feel it. And the panic that ensued was pretty incredible because I knew that did not belong there. So I've been very open about this journey. I had to have a mastectomy. A year later, I had reconstruction. And that reconstruction was one where my own tissues, my own arteries, and all of that were used, not an implant. I just thought I'd throw that out there because I want any women that go through this to know that that kind of reconstruction is an option, but it's not an option everywhere. You might have to travel to get it done if you're not close to a facility that has doctors that do it. But anyhow, as I said before this, people lying about cancer totally enraged me. There are too many people that have dealt with this terrible disease. And after my diagnosis, it hurt to hear that people would lie about cancer. And these liars, they research these diseases that they want to fake so that they can craft these convincing stories. But eventually, their stories do fall apart. It's when real cancer patients or their families or their friends or medical professionals notice inconsistencies. But to make my story even more harrowing, I guess, is not probably the right word to use, but in January 2023, I sat down in a chair, a recliner, soft chair, and felt a pop in my left side, in my ribs. And there was absolutely no rhyme or reason for this. And so I went to a local urgent care and they did an x-ray and said, okay, you pulled a muscle. Well, something didn't feel right because I hadn't really done anything to pull a muscle. So being that I was already a patient at the Ohio University Wexner Medical Center's James Cancer Center for my maintenance care after my 2018 diagnosis, I called them. They got the x-ray that was taken at my local urgent care, looked at it, and determined that my rib was fractured. So after scans and a biopsy, I learned that the cancer came back in my rib and one of my vertebrae. And I had no idea that a vertebrae was involved because I felt absolutely nothing. There was no pain, there was no indication, nothing. But it turns out it was very, very small, smaller than the tip of my pinky finger. So my stage 4 diagnosis was quite devastating. Everything under the sun goes through your mind. But this slow-growing, hormone-driven, purely mucinous carcinoma that had a very small chance of metastasizing is still a slow-growing cancer. And I have no idea why that's how my case turned out. I'm thankful. And for so many reasons, because if you're watching me on YouTube right now, it looks like there's nothing at all wrong with me. I'm doing this podcast. I work. I take care of my kids. I enjoy life with my husband. I teach baton twirling. I teach dance. I have all kinds of projects I work on. My life has pretty much moved on normally with some caveats thrown in there. But people that fake it can look okay, like I do right now. But what you don't see is what is going on underneath. But I look okay, and so do these people that fake it a lot of times, or they'll make themselves look awful. But it makes those of us that have a legitimate case look like we're faking it when we look okay. And that's not okay, and that's not fair. And I mean, medical treatments have come a very long way, which is why I'm sitting here right now doing what I'm doing these true crime podcasts that I wanted to do a podcast for so long, and I finally did it. And in case you're wondering, no, I did not have to have chemo. I did not have to have radiation. I take oral medications, and I have to go to Columbus, to Ohio State University, once a month. Now, in the previous episode, the Pike County Massacre, about the rodent murders, I mentioned that I pass through Pike County once a month to go to doctor's appointments, and that's what I go for. I get injections there, but I take Kisqali and letrozole here at home every single day, and those medications have their side effects, but I do everything I can to make sure that those side effects do not interfere with my life more than they have to. And that's hard. That's why when somebody fakes it and they're not going through these things, it is absolutely evil. So, I do have better news to share in all of this. So, when I started my treatment in 2023, after the rib was found broken and the spot on my vertebrae was found, I had a metabolic response by June of 2023. That was just 2 months on Kisqali and 3 months on letrozole. And I had, by that point, I think, received 2 or 3 sets of injections. In April of 2024, or it was October of 2023, the FDG uptake from the PET scan was very minimal. It was below metastatic levels. In April of 2024, it was even less. Like, they could barely see it. And then in September of 2024, I received what was called the Holy Grail of results. And that was a complete metabolic response, which means I'm no evidence of disease. And I am extremely blessed, and I am grateful, and I am thankful. I mean, I am down on my knees thankful for that result, because I have been able to continue forward. And I wish more people got to experience it. But again, people faking cancer suck. Now, does this mean I get to stop treatment? Absolutely not. I have to continue treatment for the rest of my life. After so long, I may be able to get a drug break on the Kisqali, but we'll have to see. You have to be no evidence of disease for so long before you get that, if you get that. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say if, instead of when, the cancer returns. I mean, my type's very rare. I've met people that have dealt with this type for 2 decades or more. The statistics, we can't look at statistics because they're not correct. They're old. It takes time to gather information. So when you look at survival statistics for stage 4 breast cancer, you're looking at all types in one bucket, because there's a lot. There are different combinations. There's like 14 different ones. But it's all put into one bucket without a whole lot of, everybody's case is so unique. And it takes so long to gather information that right now we're looking at 10-year-old statistics, and some of the treatments that have come out since then are increasing survival rates exponentially. In my case, I'm also called oligometastatic, which means I have had less than 5 metastatic sites. And that is actually a subtype of stage 4, but it's still considered stage 4 because the cancer traveled outside of its original location. So I count every day as a blessing, and I count today. I mean, getting to sit here and tell you what I'm telling you, and every week getting to do these podcasts, I'm grateful, because something that I learned in this is when you want to do something, and cancer teaches you a lot of lessons, that when you want to do something, do it, because you don't want to say, I wish I tried. I wish I at least tried. If you dream about doing something, do it. Even if you have a diagnosis like this, don't give up. If you want to do something, just do it, because you don't want to regret not at least giving it a try. Now, if you dream of faking cancer, don't do that. Okay? Don't do that. That can ruin your life. It can ruin the lives of others. It can get you thrown in prison, and it can bankrupt you. Plus, faking cancer makes people like me, who look okay but have a lot going on, it makes us look like we're faking it too. And there are some cancers that are more aggressive than others, which is why someone can live with it for a long time and others just don't, sadly. And it's why one person looks okay with the same type of cancer that someone that doesn't look okay does. So what's even more criminal in all of this is that when someone fakes it for profit rather than just attention. There's plenty that do it for just attention, but there are a huge amount of people that do it for profit. And these crooks will do such things as create GoFundMe accounts, or someone that they know feels sorry for them, or even a random person online will be like, oh, I hate it because this person has cancer. I'm going to do something great for them, and I'm going to start a GoFundMe account. And these people will even get involved with alternative treatments and then peddle them to cancer patients. And that is dangerous. That is so dangerous, because they say, I look okay because it worked for me. But the truth is that it did nothing for them because they didn't have cancer. And this is something that show, Apple Cider Vinegar, that I started watching on Netflix. This is what it covers. The girl that did this, her name is Belle Gibson. She was an Instagram wellness guru who started telling her story of survival, which led to her starting a best-selling wellness app. She claims she had been given 6 weeks to 4 months to live in 2009, but she was still kicking in 2013. She skyrocketed to 200,000 followers on Instagram, which continued to grow. She also published a cookbook called The Whole Pantry, creating a diet that, quote-unquote, cured her of her terminal illness. This cookbook that had these miracle recipes in it inspired more people to follow her and take wellness advice from her. She stated that she was embarking on a quest to heal herself naturally through nutrition, patience, determination, and love. Cosmopolitan even gave her the Fun, Fearless Female Award in 2014. Elle Australia called her the most inspiring woman you've met this year. The truth was, Belle Gibson had never been diagnosed with anything. She said that she had cancer in her liver, blood, uterus, spleen, and then of course the brain tumor that she claimed from the get-go. But she didn't have any of that. From what I understand, she was pretty healthy. And then she turned around in April 2015 and she admitted to Woman's Weekly that she was a fraud. Basically what she was doing was she was pushing pseudoscience and living a lavish lifestyle as a result. And because of people like her, it really makes me wonder when I'm bombarded by people in my comment sections when I'm sharing information about my cancer journey. They'll post, you need to try this or you need to try that. And then there's always this link tied to it. It's like an affiliate link. And it does. It makes you wonder, is this another Belle Gibson? Now, if it's somebody I know they mean well. But when it's a complete stranger that just happens to stumble across my video or my post, it really makes me wonder. Now, there are some alternative treatments that work in conjunction with modern medicine. However, somebody telling me to take snake oil to get rid of my medications because they're poisoning me, yep, they're not exactly nice to my system, but they're doing the job. I'm here. I'm talking to you right now. But they always come with a link. Almost always come with a link. And that's what's wrong. I'll even get people that send me links to gummies, cannabis gummies. Or pot gummies, as some of us call them. But, different formulations and things like that. And while cannabis helps deal with effects of cancer, there would be a lot of people still alive today if it cured it. So, promoting hearsay without solid medical evidence through independent studies is criminal in itself, because there are so many people that are desperate for something that can save their lives. So, if you are a cancer patient, or you ever experience it, God forbid, be wary. Do your own research, present it to your doctor. Your doctor does not want you to go anywhere. Yes, pharmaceutical companies, I'll admit, they can be a little sketchy. And I can tell you some stories about some drugs that can cure my type of cancer that ended up shelved by one large pharmaceutical company, but acquired by a smaller one, and it's going into human trials. Or actually, it has already started and is showing extremely promising results. And there's about 7 or more drugs just like it. We've moved further than we ever have before in finding drugs that actually work without being toxic to the system and may even potentially cure certain types of cancer. But again, do your research and find a doctor with an open mind. There are a lot of doctors out there that see no issues with things like turkey tail mushrooms, but there are so many factors that come into play as to whether these things are safe. And in the case of breast cancer, where there's so many different kinds, there's these subtypes. For instance, hormone positive like me, there are some substances that can cause my system to create estrogen when we're trying to cut it off. Whereas somebody with, say, a triple negative can take that thing, but somebody that's hormone positive like me can't. So there are so many things that come into play. And usually the people that are popping into these comment sections that say, hey, take this, have no idea whatsoever about these different types of cancers. People that push supplements, these supplements have not been tested against all these different types of cancers, whether it's going to make it worse or if it's going to help. So you have to talk to your doctor. So that way you can make an informed decision. Do not be afraid to do your own research and present it to them. My doctor is very receptive to that. We've talked about that, and we've had wonderful discussions when I bring up a research study. So, back to the big topic here, as I've watched Apple Cider Vinegar. It's just, you need to check it out on Netflix. It shows this person putting lives at risk for the sake of profit and popularity. And we live in this age, this social media age, where views and clicks mean money. And that has opened up to a whole new era of cancer fakers. And unfortunately, a lot of them are on TikTok. And I love TikTok. I do. You can get lots of great information. You can follow people in their health journeys. You root for them. You pray for them. You become invested in their stories. You become part of their lives. They become part of yours. I love TikTok for that. There's wonderful communities there, but then there's that small population that, and here so far we've heard Instagram, Facebook, or we're going to. But TikTok, it is a huge one. And here's a perfect example. In one case that you might have heard of is 19-year-old, or she was 19 at the time, Madison Russo. She raised approximately $40,000. It's more like $37,000. This resulted in Russo getting charged with theft when the truth was discovered that she was completely faking her diagnosis. 439 donors fell for her story that she had acute lymphoblastic leukemia, that she also had stage 2 pancreatic cancer. So she's piling these different types of cancers on top of each other, because she also said she had a tumor the size of a football wrapped around her spine. Seriously. And it was people with medical experience who pointed out that Russo's pointed out the medical discrepancies. The medical records were then subpoenaed, and it was learned that Russo was never diagnosed with any type of cancer. There was no medical center that had ever diagnosed her with anything. And this Bettendorf, Iowa resident, she was arrested for theft by deception. And police then had to work to identify her victims, and which they were able to do through GoFundMe, because GoFundMe provided the records. They also refunded all of the people that donated to Madison Russo's fundraiser. But she also got donations from businesses, school districts, private citizens, and nonprofits. So she was making some bank, and if she could have kept going, she would have made even more. But while Russo was running her scam, she had been interviewed by local press, and in October 2022, she spoke with the North Scott Press for a profile that focused on her cancer experience. She was also a guest speaker at the St. Ambrose University at their National Pancreatic Foundation in Chicago. So here is a KWQC News 6 clip of Russo making a statement at her sentencing, as well as the details of that sentence.
I didn't do this for money or greed. I didn't do this for attention. I did this in an attempt to try and get my family back together.
Madison Russo will avoid time in prison. Today, a Scott County judge handed down 3 years probation and a 10-year suspended sentence. That's your top story at 11. I'm Morgan OTA. Thanks for joining us. Russo pleaded guilty back in June to one count of first-degree theft, a Class C felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Russo was charged after police discovered that she received more than $37,000 in donations based on a false cancer claim. Russo spoke to the court today, apologizing to anyone victimized by her actions, including anyone touched by cancer.
I also pray for all of those that were hurt by my irrational decision. I pray for the damage that has resulted from my actions and any harm or disrespect I caused or showed to anyone battling cancer, touched by cancer, or fighting to help people with cancer or other medical issues.
Victims were also given the opportunity to make their own impact statements in court. Peggy Elle, who you see here, an Eldridge woman who lost her husband to pancreatic cancer, said she continues to feel betrayed by Maddie.
I hope Maddie Russo has to spend a great deal of time in jail. I hope Maddie Russo has to pay restitution. She preyed on my emotions and my giving nature. She used my husband's legacy and our fund to better her story and to lend legitimacy to her fake cancer story.
Both victims who made impact statements today said they also feel betrayed by the Scott County Attorney's Office because a harsher sentence was not pursued.
So another case I want to mention, but I won't deep dive too far into it because it's a long one that deserves its own episode, but it's the Elizabeth Finch case. And there was actually a documentary on Peacock called Anatomy of Lies, and the title's pretty clever because she was a writer for Grey's Anatomy. Now, I initially learned about her on the Kendall Ray True Crime podcast, and it just blew my mind. I was on my way back from one of my doctor's appointments in Columbus, and I saw this title on Kendall Ray's podcast page about someone faking cancer. And It did. It just blew my mind. And then, of course, I had to watch the documentary on Peacock when it came out. And the details, how she got away with what she got away with, is just incredible. But, yeah, I mean, learn about it. I recommend it. And I will do a longer episode on it later. But here's some information about her that might encourage you to research her a little bit. So Elizabeth was a Grey's Anatomy writer who had faked cancer for years. She took advantage of the sympathy of others to get her way in many ways. And I promise I'll do another episode on her in the future. In the meantime, watch Anatomy of Lies, and we'll see how many details I can come up with that may not be in that documentary. And I just want to be able to take a deep, deep dive into that one, because it will blow your mind. But another one that's going to blow your mind is the story of Brittany Ozorowski. She said that she had stage 2 ovarian cancer and that she was also diagnosed with stomach cancer in September of 2011. 3 months after that diagnosis, she miraculously beat the odds only for it to return in her bone and brain. It's wild. She was 21 years old, and she set up this website with the tagline, "Help Save My Life." She also set up a donation page on Facebook and placed donation jars in 25 businesses in her area. There were several fundraisers that were conducted for her. She said the money funded her cancer treatment at Memorial Sloan Kettering, but it was really feeding her heroin addiction. Ozorowski's grandmother was so distraught over her diagnosis that she sold her home and gave Ozorowski $100,000. Her father also emptied his retirement account. So he basically ruined his future because he was worried about his daughter, not knowing that his daughter was lying to him about her diagnosis. And what made those that were following her battle suspicious was when she refused to allow anyone to go to and from her appointments with her. So she was just kind of like, hey, I'm a loner. I mean, I go to mine by myself most of the time, but I've been doing it for a long time. I've been in treatment, whether it was maintenance treatment or active stage 4 treatment, for over 6 years now. So it's kind of a routine thing for me. But she apparently was supposed to have been going through some pretty harsh treatments and not asking for any kind of support. And those that offered it, she's just like, nah, I'm not going to do it. But the girl was eventually arrested and charged with grand larceny and perpetrating a scheme to fraud. Yeah. So in another case, a man faked breast cancer to avoid his parole officer. This case occurred in 2005 when Jeffrey Bonniwell was arrested on a burglary charge. He was sentenced to 10 years of probation, having to meet his probation officer once a month. So Bonniwell got tired of meeting with his parole officer, so he sent that letter that said, hey, I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm going to be doing chemotherapy and radiation, so I can't come see you anymore. Now, while men do get breast cancer, and that's something that I advocate for because men tend to be forgotten when it comes to that diagnosis. Although mostly women do get it, I see men in the waiting room at my doctor's appointments because they get it. So it's important that we not forget about them. But Bonniwell, he raised suspicion with his claims. So a subpoena was issued to the Texas Oncology South Austin for his medical records. And what they found was that there was no record of him at all as far as being a patient there. Crazy what people will do to avoid some of their obligations. But guess what happened to him? He ended up back in jail because he violated his probation. So, that's another one that got busted. But in another case of someone that was using cancer to escape a crime was Kelly Lisa Duncan in 2007. She worked for Imperial Point Animal Hospital in South Florida, and she was approached by her bosses because something was off with the numbers. However, they were distracted by the news that she had pancreatic cancer. For 3 years, the veterinarian and his wife and the staff stood by Duncan as she went through her quote-unquote treatment. But what was odd was that her issues seemed to get worse when payroll reviews were happening. In 2010, her story then fell apart, just like these stories always fall apart. She was caught falsifying the payroll records, and basically the cancer that Duncan invented was a distraction from the embezzlement scheme that she was conducting, and she had been embezzling since 2004. She had stolen at least $647,800 from the animal hospital. That is insane. But she was arrested for it in 2011 and ended up pleading guilty to mail fraud. She then faced at least 41 months in jail. So there's another one busted. I want to take a second and talk about Thrive Market. Right now, they are offering 30% off of organic groceries, and they're going to give you a little gift that is worth $60 or more. So if you want to eat healthier and you're looking for organic options, click the link in this episode's description and see what Thrive Market has to offer. This next case is about a mother who faked her son's cancer in order to get medical benefits. Emma Lagarde, she was a British mom, took her son to the doctor when he was complaining of leg pain. Now, he was only 7 years old at this time. Tests were done, everything was clear, he was good to go. Nonetheless, Lagarde created a medical ordeal that lasted 4 years. This mother of 5 forged medical documents, shaved her son's hair and eyebrows, made him use a wheelchair at school and out in public, and at first she said it was an autoimmune disease. But it morphed into a story of it's lymphoma a couple years later. What she managed to get out of this were disability benefits, tax exemptions, and funding as an at-home caretaker. She obtained over $130,000 in her scheme and used the money to go on vacation, including Disney World, where they got to go in the front of the line because her son was in a wheelchair, so they didn't have to wait in line like everybody else. But Lagarde, she was eventually caught and charged with 8 counts of fraud, 1 count of child cruelty, and a few other charges. She got a prison sentence of 3 years and 8 months. And what's funny is when I was looking for cases, this one really reminded me of the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case, just not quite as extreme as what was going on with that one. But this next one, definitely an imaginative one. It involves Scott Wellington's wife, who found a lump in her breast, and then the cancer escalated from there. For 2.5 years, Wellington's co-workers at his New Hampshire employer sympathized with him about his wife's double mastectomy and her eventual death. There was a lot of heartbreak for Wellington and his children, while his wife was quote-unquote dying. So he was given some money to cover medical expenses and to help take care of his kids. And they also gave him time off. Like over Christmas, he was given 3 weeks of paid holiday leave, and he collected around $7,000 in donations. But the truth was that his wife was alive and well. She found out that she had died when she opened a sympathy card that had come through the mail. She then called her husband's work and told them that she was alive. And so, guess what? He was arrested and he got some prison time for it. So, and rightfully so. The next one is a biggie. Ashley Ann Kirilow. She was born in 1987 in Canada, and she claimed to have cancer and raise money for other cancer patients. To make her story believable, she actually altered her appearance to make herself look like a cancer patient. And I found a picture of that in Wikipedia. In 2008 or 2009, Kirilow said that she found a lump in her breast The truth was that the lump was benign and removed, but she told people that it was malignant. On Kirilow's Facebook page, she said that she had set up a charity called Change for the Cure. She visited children in the hospital that were undergoing cancer treatment as a way to legitimize her charity, and there were also benefit concerts that were organized on her behalf to help raise money. When she was eventually caught, some people said that her fraud would have a negative impact on the online donations that other charities needed, which is very much correct because people need to know what they're donating toward, and the more fake charities there are, the more likely people are to hang on to their money because they don't want it to go toward somebody like Kirilow. But it gets even more messed up because in October 2010, Linda Nguyen reported on the efforts to raise funds for Alexis Rongsberg's experimental leukemia treatment. Kirilow jumped on that in a heartbeat. In addition to any funds that Kirilow obtained, a charity then paid for a Disney World vacation that was given to people who were at risk of dying. The charity that funded Kirilow's trip was the organization ran by skateboarder Rob Dyer. His organization's name is Skate for Cancer. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit, as I do on every episode at some point. Kirilow, she worked as a receptionist at a realty office, and it was in September 2008 that she told her coworkers that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. Her boss arranged a fundraiser that raised $7,000. This kind of thing is just so ridiculously common that in the same week that Kirilow ended up pleading guilty, Jessica Ann Leader, 21, of Huntsville, Ontario, also used Facebook to obtain funds for her non-existent cancer. As for what Kirilow was charged with, there was the fact she raised thousands of dollars under the guise of a charity to benefit other cancer patients. There were then 3 additional fraud charges. Those all had to do with frauds that were under $5,000. She ended up being released to the John Howard Society, which is an organization that's focused on prison reform, working with adults and youths to rebuild their lives. Crazy. It's all crazy. And as I said, they all get busted. But now I'm going to throw in a more recent case at you. I have all kinds of cases here to throw at you, and I'm trying not to overwhelm you, but it's just I found so much in my research. But this more recent case happened in Canton, Georgia. A woman, Morgan Metzer, and this is a wild story. This is probably one of my longer ones in this episode. But Morgan Metzer was awakened by a man in black clothing standing in the doorway of her bedroom. The man ran, jumped on her, and started pistol whipping her. He used zip ties to tie her wrists, and then he started strangling her. She almost passed out twice. The man said, "You're going to regret this. You're done. Or you've done really wrong now." The voice sounded like Christian Bale's Batman. And I'm sure you remember, if you've seen the Batman movies, how he talked like really, really gravelly. Well, that's the voice that this woman was hearing, somebody that was trying to talk that way. So there was a story done on this case on December 14th, 2024 on CBS. It was called The Batman Intruder, and named very appropriately in this case. And if you want to watch it, you can find it on CBS or Paramount Plus. But anyway, after the attacker strangled her, he put a pillowcase on her head, picked her up, took her out to the back porch, which was just right off from her bedroom. He told her not to move or he'd kill her. She heard 2 honks from a car, which indicates hitting a key fob, and then all became quiet. Approximately 40 minutes later, Morgan felt terrified all over again because she heard footsteps, and it turned out to be her ex-husband, Rod Metzer. He asked, "Oh, honey, what happened?" Rod then called 911 and was lauded a hero for rescuing his ex-wife. Rod said that, "I've always looked out for her. Even after our divorce, I've just always been there for her." They were together since they were 14, or she was 14 and he was 17. They married in their early 20s. They had twins that were currently with Morgan's sister in Florida. And Morgan said that she divorced Rod because he was mentally and physically abusive toward her. So she kicks him out. He moves to his own apartment. But earlier in the week of the attack, Rod had called Morgan to tell her that he had pancreatic cancer. She rushed to his side. He had notes from doctors and other documents that he showed her. So she allowed Rod to stay in her home to help him through the diagnosis. She said, "Hey, he's still the father of my children. I'm going to help him out." Well, during that time, he was constantly trying to get Morgan to get back together with him, but she didn't want to. It was New Year's Eve of that year that Morgan told Rod it was about time he shared his diagnosis with his mom and dad. Well, he refused. He said he wasn't telling anyone, so Morgan told him to get out. He left, but texted her repeatedly about getting back together, and out of frustration, Morgan then lied and told Rod that she was going to stay at her parents' on New Year's Eve night. This brought about suspicions as to how Rod knew that Morgan was home and not at her parents when he was talking to the police. He just randomly shows up by coincidence when she was supposed to be at her parents' house. He said that he had heard somebody knock on his ground floor apartment window and heard Morgan's name. He then tried to call Morgan, but she didn't answer. That's when he decided to go check on her, and he said it was habit that led him to go to her house instead of her parents' house where she said she would be. So because of the coincidence of him showing up when she wasn't supposed to be there, made the police very suspicious. They didn't fully believe Rod's story. So they obtained search warrants for his apartment, his electronics, so that they could see his internet search history. And they found searches like, ready? How to get sympathy from your ex and how to change the sound of your voice. One search that got a whole lot of attention was, quote unquote, cancer letter from hospital. Rod had even created a fake email where he posed as a doctor and sent himself that letter. But it doesn't stop there. He even created a bill from a doctor's office that showed he was receiving treatment for pancreatic cancer. That's a really popular one. And it's because it's a bad one. It's a really bad one. It's one of the cancers that has the lowest survival rate. So, of course, that's going to be one that these people run to. But anyway, he did all of this to convince Morgan that he had cancer when he never did. He was trying to get the sympathy from her. Rod eventually ended up pleading guilty to 14 counts relating to the attack on Morgan. He was sentenced to 70 years, with 25 of them in prison and the rest on probation. Now, why would any of these people want to fake a cancer diagnosis? It just startles me how many people do it. In my research, I could do an entire series on this if I wanted to, but the story is largely the same because, as I said, pancreatic cancer is a popular choice. They always get busted. It's either for attention or profit. But whether it's strictly attention or profit or whatever it is, it's awful. It's bad. And unfortunately, if there's a case where it's just attention seeking, lying is not a crime, so they don't get arrested for it. It's the court of public opinion that they fall victim to. But like the Grey's Anatomy writer Elizabeth Finch that I talked about earlier, she's a very good example of this. And there are others like her. But everything that she did, you would think that she would have gotten arrested. But she didn't. So that brings me to the Taiwanese fitness influencer that said she had late-stage pancreatic cancer for 3 years. And it was her ex-husband who became suspicious and ratted her out because she wouldn't allow him to take her to treatment. He decided to see her doctor alone, and it turned out the doctor wasn't even her doctor. She issued an apology online, and nothing happened to her because, just like Elizabeth Finch, she lied. She did not try to make a profit from it. It was just a story. But Sarah Jane Kavanaugh, however, pretended to be a Marine with cancer. Now, this story is a little bit different. So because she received more than $280,000 in donations and benefits over 5 years before she was busted in 2022. So, unlike our Taiwanese influencer and Elizabeth Finch, this one is in deep water because she's taken so much money. She's probably one of the higher amounts that I came into in my research. But here's the story that Kavanaugh threw out. She said that she was wounded by an IED in Iraq and that she had developed cancer because of burn pits and other military activities. She would wear a military uniform to public events and wore a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star on that uniform. She purchased those online. You can get those pretty easily. That fraud got her 6 years in prison. She took a lot of money. Now, a reason why experts say that these people may fake cancer is because they have a desire to be cared for. And that kind of falls into the wanting attention category. And then there is factitious disorder, which was formerly called Munchausen by proxy. I mean, it can be a mental illness, as these folks want to be seen as sick by other people. But no matter why they're doing it, whether it's attention, profit, mental illness, whatever, these people are very well informed about the illnesses that they make others believe that they have. Symptoms are either exaggerated or they're created. Medical histories are very elaborate, and they will even see multiple providers to try and get some kind of diagnosis. They want to be believed. They want to get official documents. Again, think the Blanchard case. Dee Dee Blanchard somehow convinced doctors to do what they, to create the paperwork, the documents, because they were taking her word for it. And there are so many people that try to do that very thing, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes these people will even try to hurt themselves to make themselves appear sick. The experts even say that people will fake cancer because they enjoy the deception. But no matter the reason, it is wrong. There are people dying from cancer. There are people like me who are in lifelong treatment, hoping that and praying that we will see at least one of these clinical trial treatments that are showing the most promising results ever recorded. These people who are faking don't know what it's like to look at your husband and small children and imagine their lives without you. They don't know what it's like to get on your knees and beg God to not take you from your family. They aren't dealing with the chemotherapy or the radiation. They're not dealing with the surgeries. They aren't taking the drugs to keep you alive for as long as possible. I mean, I really miss my once awesome eyebrows, but my medication takes that away from me. They're very thin now. And my hair texture has changed, so I have to keep my hair short. There's just many things that you have to adjust to. But I will say about the hair, it is much easier to take care of that way. And I lose a lot of it in the shower, and the one time that I tried to let it grow out a little longer, my poor husband in the drain. I'm not even going to go there. But anyway, these fraudsters just have absolutely no clue. And then there's scanxiety. And anybody listening to this that's had to have a scan for any medical reason, there is a high degree of anxiety associated with that because you don't know what it's going to say. I have a scan this month, and the anxiety is very real. You don't know when that next scan is going to be the one that tells you that it's come back, that your drugs are no longer working, and that you're going to have to go on a new treatment protocol. And usually each subsequent protocol doesn't last as long as the one before it. But nonetheless, as long as I'm able, I will continue to do the things that I love to do. I will work. I will take care of my kids. I will continue doing fun things with my husband. I will dance. I will teach baton. I'll jump in that car and go to all of the archery tournaments and the band events. I will continue doing this podcast as long as everybody enjoys me doing it. And I will smile and feel grateful every single day that I am here to do all of these things, including sitting here and talking to you about this very personal topic and these extremely insane individuals that want to be cancer patients without having to deal with the terrible things that cancer patients go through. And a lot of times, those of us that legitimately have it don't seek a lot of sympathy. There are a lot of cancer patients that are private. They don't give a lot of details. Now, someone like me that doesn't always do it to solicit donations. I never have. I mean, I just wouldn't. And I mean, I know that this is a hard topic for me, which is why this is taking me a little longer to get through, because I do worry, but at the same time, I don't lose my gratefulness. And I don't know. I just wanted to share this very personal piece of my life with you and do a podcast on the people that make people like me not want to. I don't know. It's complicated. But anyway, luckily, most of the time, my case is very uneventful. But my next scan is February 27th of this month, and I will be sure to tell all of you how that goes. With that said, do not forget to like and subscribe, and also show my affiliate some love by clicking the link in the episode details, and be sure to tell your friends. So as I close out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a couple TikTok videos. So hang around for a second. These videos highlight a little bit of my metastatic breast cancer journey. If you wish to see them, you will need to go look for the Basement Files on YouTube or click the link below. Otherwise, you'll be able to hear these videos on your Apple Podcasts app or Spotify. So until next time, be good and God bless. Hey everybody, so I wanted to give you an update. The biopsy results were exactly what we figured they would be. My oncologist was right on when he went ahead and started discussing treatment protocols with me. He just needed the biopsy to confirm, and knowing the molecular structure lets him know, what we should try first, which is going to be hormone therapy. I was on hormone therapy to begin with, but I was moved to tamoxifen because for my particular type of cancer, it's very rare, it's very low aggression, and it is associated with some long-term positive outcomes, even in stage 4 cases. Mucinous carcinomas of the breast are extremely, they only constitute like 3% of breast cancer cases and less than 1% in my age group. So there's not enough of us to bring up the stage 4 survival statistics. But he was very optimistic, and that has helped. Of course, nobody wants to be told that they have stage 4 cancer. Nobody. But no chemo. Chemo is like a, way down the road thing if we would need it. I had changed my diet and my level of physical activity a long time ago. I've lost over 100 pounds or 120-ish, and that works in my favor. But one thing is that the tumor is very, very small, and being that it is the only tumor that I have, we caught it so early, so incredibly early. And I'll tell you, I'll do another video on the story of the broken rib and how it does not have cancer and just broke for no good reason. This would not have been found without it. But I'll tell that story in another video. I kind of already told it, but we didn't have this diagnosis yet. So, but I'm okay. I'll be okay. As I said, things are looking favorable for, being able to manage this for the long term.
being that it's such a unique, they actually call it a special breast cancer because it's kind of set apart a little bit from, the other subtypes. I'll do more videos on that as well, because I know there's not a lot of videos here on TikTok about mucinous carcinoma of the breast because there's not many people that have it. So research studies are small but very promising, and I'm actually in one of those at Ohio State University. So they have more data to use now, but I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Hey everybody, so I haven't updated in a while, but this word that is in my PET scan results from Monday warrants an update. As you can tell here, the results are not bad. And if you've been following, my results in April were very, very good because my FDG uptake was so minimal. They still assigned a value to it, but it was so minimal that it was well below metastatic levels, which is exactly what we wanted. It wasn't indicating any active disease. But, it was more of a residual type of uptake thing. Well, there's a word in this, a word. And as a stage 4 cancer patient, I'll show you. I'm going to shrink my head here so you can see. Woo, okay. Here we go. See that? It says resolved. It says resolved. That doesn't end my treatment. We have to keep doing treatment to keep it that way because stage 4, you can get that and sometime later it can mutate and come back. But that is huge. That is so huge. We've been partying and bursting with joy, and I wanted to bring that here to you all. I wanted to share that joy with you from seeing that word. And, I've had a lot of people praying for me, and I'm going to get emotional again. I about passed out yesterday. But anyway, I wanted to share that word with you. So I'll see you later.